So, good morning. We talk about, today we talk about results of hair transplant. This bright Sunday morning. Often asked question, are hair transplant results permanent? Doctor, will my hair transplant result last? So as people join in this Sunday morning, and in parts of the world it's evening time, and probably not many people will attend on a Saturday evening, but still keeping up my routine of one live session in the morning for those people who have certain questions. So this is a continuation of my commitment of having a live session every morning, be it a Sunday or a Friday or a Monday, it doesn't matter. So today we talk about permanency of hair transplant results. So as we all know that the internet is rife with misinformation. There is good information as well, but more often than not, there is a lot of misinformation which is not corroborated, and misinformation given by non-medical operators. Mostly these are people who want to gain unethically from the insecurities of young men suffering from hair loss. And then also forums also contribute to this negativity because they are filled with panic and they're not moderated properly. If there was a doctor or a person who knows hair loss treatment, hair loss, the etiology of hair loss, androgenic alopecia, who knows about hair transplant, and without commercial motive was to moderate these forums, they would have much more veracity, and they will not create this panic that they do presently. Also, clinics are also to blame because clinics oversell dreams. Though it is the physician's duty to bring sanity to this saturated discourse, it is seldom done. The purpose of my early morning talks is to equip you with a clear-headed, unbiased information that is free from a commercial agenda, because I don't sell anything on my talks. And this information is rooted in over 2 decades of hands-on experience treating hair loss in both men and women. And yes, that includes hair transplants too. And hair transplants are my daily bread. And I'm proud to say that it's my life's craft. So coming back to the talk, a hair transplant surgeon, and I'm also one, is not in the business of selling grafts. It's not a retail item that we procure for you and plant it on your head. Because if it were, then it would be a legitimate question to ask that, doctor, why is my hair transplant not permanent? But it isn't. Every graft that is sourced from your own body, because I am merely redistributing your existing hair, not planting new ones. So every graft that is relocated from the back of the head to the front carries with it your unique genetic pattern, your unique genetic coding. And the hair that have been transplanted, probably if your candidacy has been properly evaluated, the hair that have been transplanted, though they remain for a long period of time, mostly lifetime, but how they behave in some cases, we ourselves do not know. So since it's your own existing hair, they will last as long as they are programmed to by your unique genetics. We have no control other than identifying the good grafts, picking up the anagen grafts, cherry picking, not compromising the integrity of the scalp donor, not going beyond into the non-permanent hair. That is the doctor's job. Identifying good grafts and then relocating them in a manner that they survive. Excuse me. People are joining now. So when patients walk into my clinic or when they connect with me via video consultations, from halfway across the world, there's one question that is foremost in the minds and that always finds its way into the conversation. Sometimes asked hesitantly, other times just blurted out as a plea, "Doctor, is a hair transplant permanent?" And truthfully, it is a fair question to ask. In an age where quick fixes are marketed as panaceas, people crave something lasting, something real. But permanence in medicine is a nuanced term because nothing in the world is permanent, leave alone the human body. Everything that God has created will deteriorate over time, and that is the eternal truth. So when we talk about permanence of hair transplant, it is just merely a relative term. It rarely equates to forever, like in the romantic sense. When it comes to hair transplants, the answer is neither a simple yes nor a harsh no. The answer demands a layered understanding, a nuanced explanation that empowers rather than pacifies. So let us now, today morning, on this Sunday morning, demystify this subject about permanency in hair transplants. Now, hair transplant is fundamentally a process of redistribution. We are not creating new follicles, we are just relocating robust THC-resistant follicles from a donor zone, typically the occipital scalp, to regions of thinning or baldness. And there are two primary methods of doing so. In the FUT method, let me just lock the door, my dog wants to come in. Sorry for the interruption. So there are primarily two methods of relocation of grafts, hair transplantation. One is FUT method, follicular unit transplantation. A strip of skin is taken from the back of the head and moved to the front, not the whole strip, but it is further sliced into a single hair grafts, double hair grafts, triple hair grafts, and fours as they appear in nature under microscope, and then moved into the recipient area. So this is FUT, which was very common and which was considered early as the gold standard of hair transplant surgery, but not anymore. Now FUE is more in vogue. Even clinics which were crying hoarse about FUT being the gold standard of hair transplant surgery have moved on to FUE hair transplantation or follicular unit extraction. So individual hair follicles are extracted using micropunches of various sizes, of various denominations, of various shapes. For various punches have various functions, and these leave minimal scarring. Why do these transplanted hairs survive in their new location? They survive because they are living tissue. They only need support, nutrition in the environment in which they are located. And they also survive because they carry with them their genetic programming. And these donor hair, if located, identified properly from the safe zone, are not susceptible to miniaturizing because of the effect of DHT, dihydrotestosterone, the androgen, the metabolite of testosterone that is responsible for follicular miniaturization in androgenic alopecia. So understanding the hair growth cycle is another key component when we talk about graft survival, when we talk about permanency of hair transplant results. And most of us who have been here on the channel know that the hair cycle is made of three components: that the anagen phase or the growth phase, which lasts for about 2 to 6 years, and the catagen phase or the transition phase, which lasts about a few weeks. And the telogen phase, or the resting or shedding phase, as you may like to call it, lasts a few months, 4 months or so. In androgenic alopecia, dihydrotestosterone, DHT, progressively shortens the anagen phase of susceptible follicles until they produce no visible shaft. So hair transplant places follicles prolonged for long anagen period, long anagen cycles into the bald areas, essentially offering a biologically resistant repopulation. Replacing the atretic or the grafts which are going away into resting phase and then just vanishing because of disappearing because of androgenic alopecia, by biologically resistant population of hair grafts from the back of the head, shifting them to the recipient area. Some questions are coming in, but I'll answer them after the live session concludes. So please don't mind, because I just don't want to break the continuity of the talk, and then I have some other work to do. So, but I'll individually reply to all your questions. So the next is, the journey begins with a meticulous consultation. Candidacy isn't universal. Everybody is not a fit candidate for hair transplant. Age is a big criteria. We do not do hair transplants less than 25 years of age. And if you have a very strong family history, we may ask you to wait for 27 or 30 years of age. We also have to assess for candidacy of a hair transplant the degree of hair loss. The donor reserve. Is the donor area healthy, or is there miniaturization also in the donor area? Something known as diffuse pattern alopecia. And all this must align with long-term objectives of the patient. Now, after eligibility of the whether the patient is eligible for a hair transplant or not, once this is confirmed, the procedure follows, and the procedure is essentially 4 phases: donor harvesting, graft preparation under microscope, that is trimming, hydration, preservation, then the recipient site creation by sapphire knife or whatever technique a surgeon is used to doing, whatever he is skilled in doing. The site creation creates the angle, the direction, the density, and this must be such that it should mimic nature. Any deviation from this, especially along the hairline and temple points, will make the hair transplant look much worse than baldness. And then lastly, the implantation. And implantation is done with a jeweler's precision. You have to be very careful that each and every hair that has been taken out of the body, because it's not an infinite source, it's a finite source. So each and every hair which is taken out from the body should survive to the best of its potential after relocation. So a lot of care is taken during this process of harvesting to moving it to the recipient area by implantation. So this is hair transplant is no longer about just covering baldness, just shifting grafts from one place to the other, like many technician-oriented clinics are doing, without keeping into mind the aesthetics of the whole procedure. Hair transplant, my dear friends, is about restoring harmony in the face, and naturally, aesthetically pleasing face should result, not a harsh hairline, not a hairline you can make out from a mile. That defeats the purpose. And there are a lot of newer advancements, and the biggest advance is not the techniques, is not the machines, but the skill development of the patient, of the person, the doctor, and his team who are performing the procedure. Over a period of years, people have become so adept at hair transplant that the transaction rates have significantly decreased, and survival of grafts is now almost 100%. If you have done due diligence and selected the grafts properly and properly selected the candidate for a hair transplant. So besides these punches that we had, an array of punches that we have in the market today, and each of them has its own benefits, its own utility, and used in different indications where deemed fit. There are other knives like sapphire blades. Graft storage has seen considerable advancement, and in the future, robotic site creation holds a lot of promise. And these are tools that will enhance accuracy over time, but As I said earlier, artistry still resides in the hands of the surgeon who's doing the procedure. Without the surgeon, without a skilled procedure, technique is nothing. The most advanced instrumentation is nothing. So that is the truth about hair transplant surgery. Do not get carried away by the hype. So following the surgery test, there's the test of the patient's patience more than the procedure itself. So the patient will go through in the aftermath of a hair transplant through the first week, there is intense scabbing and crusting. He's advised not to touch or manipulate the grafts. Week 2 to 3, their shock loss, shedding phase starts. Crust is still there till the second week end. And this is where the newly placed follicles shed the shafts, a completely normal process, nothing to worry. Most of the hair in most of the people will shed between 7 days and 28 days after hair transplant. There are some lucky people in whom there is no shedding that happens, but those are very few and far between. In the month 3rd to 4th, early sprouts emerge in the recipient area, but they lack melanin, they're not colored, they're wispy thin. You can barely make out, they do not come in the comb, and it's just the early sprouting of grafts. By the end of the month 6, depending upon your age, and if you're young, results come faster. Partial growth is visible at 6 months, and then this continues to thicken, and a good result comes at 9 months. The results of hair transplant are complete by the 12th month, sometimes by the 18th month, or a year and a half. So patients must understand that if you say that my hair transplant has failed just by looking at the shedding phase, and you haven't yet been patient for about 6 to 9 months, and think that your hair transplant was a complete failure, that the hair transplant as promised was not permanent, and that is unfair, because hair transplant is no plug and play. It's a biological process. It is a biological integration. It takes time. And I often liken hair transplant surgery to agriculture. You do not dig up the soil 2 weeks after planting seeds to see if they're growing. So there's no point in this first 4 months to keep coming back to the doctor and say that, doctor, my hair is not growing. Can you find out? Can you look into it? There is no way a doctor can, dig up the soil and find out if the seeds are growing, because if it does, those are not going to survive. We only have to be patient. We only have to nurture your grafts like we nurture seeds, put the proper fertilizer, water them, and that's what we do in hair transplant as well. Take finasteride, take minoxidil, take biotin, do microneedling after 6 weeks. Do whatever you may. That is a logical treatment so that your grafts grow to their best potential. So as in agriculture, likewise in hair transplant, first you nurture, then you wait, and only if you have done these 2 things, nurturing and waiting, will you get a golden harvest, which is ready to be reaped. So the most pivotal question is a hair transplant permanent? We go back to the same question. The transplanted hairs are permanent in the sense that they retain the genetic resistance of the donor area. Once they grow in the recipient area, they generally, as I told you earlier, if they have been selected properly in the right patient, they will generally last a lifetime. If they start to thin as you age, come back to your doctor. He's going to write you some medication. Take them for a period that he wants you to take them, but be compliant to medication as well. It's not that the hair will grow on their own and they last a lifetime on their own. They require maintenance as well. Just like a potted plant will require maintenance. You leave it, go on holiday for 2 weeks, and you will see once you come back, it has withered. So similarly, a hair transplant does require care in the long term. Hair, once transplanted, will not, if they've been taken from the safe zone, will not disappear, but they may thin, and this may take away from the result. But permanence here doesn't mean that every hair transplanted, every hair that has been transplanted will live eternally. Nor does it mean that the areas around the transplanted hair will not continue to recede if not managed properly. Because if the native thinning hair recede, light will again pass and you will feel that your hair transplant density, which was superb earlier, has now started to thin out. Light is passing through. So when you take pictures, it looks thin, the result looks thin. So it is basically the native thinning hair which were not prevented from falling off, you've not been compliant to treatment, or if you've been compliant to treatment, not if you have been compliant to treatment, even otherwise there will be some amount of progression of baldness that will take place. Follicles, you're transplanting a genetic signature. As that signature is intact, the grafts will survive. Hairs around them might still miniaturize. That is the truth. That's why it is common to see men with patchy islands or transplanted hair surrounded by new zones of thinning. And we see it very commonly at the back of the head, at the crown area, when you plant the crown area with high density, that the crown, native crown has expanded over a period of time, and there is a halo effect or an island effect. There's a central island and surrounded by a sea of baldness. Just like a part of the iceberg has broken off and it is there in isolation. And this can be aesthetically quite disconcerting. But if you follow care, this will not happen overnight. And it gives you enough time to correct itself by a minor touch-up procedure. And this is where maintenance therapies come in. Maintenance therapies have their own role to play in hair transplant surgery. Because transplant is only half the story. The other half is your genetics, your preservation. And to maintain a uniform, natural look over time, patients must commit to certain medications. If your baldness is progressing, strong family history, miniaturization is evident, finasteride. Finasteride is a DHT blocker that slows down or halts miniaturization in native hairs. And then minoxidil, which enhances hair caliber and extends the anagen duration, gives you a better result because more hair are visible in the anagen phase. And then lifestyle management cannot be understated. Lifestyle is as important as medication, as important as your hair loss. Because if your existing hair, native thinning hair fall off, what's the point? So adequate nutrition, stress control, sleeping, following the circadian rhythm, the sun cycle, avoid night duties, do not take whey protein, do not indulge in too much of anaerobic exercises, do not smoke too much of tobacco. And then a lot of people talk about PRP therapy. PRP therapy is optional. Actually, it is not needed. Many times I say that it's a scam. But many will try it. So if you think that PRP is beneficial to you, please go ahead, because many times I have observed that when you spend money, not because of the medication, but by spending money, it seems as if you are growing hair. So ignoring maintenance is like fixing a leaking roof but leaving the cracks in the wall. Sooner or later, the entire structure will be compromised. A good surgeon, needless to say, doesn't just operate. He provides you with a roadmap for the years ahead. After having done a hair transplant skillfully, growing your hair out naturally, it is a long-term investment. Long-term care is needed in consultation with a doctor whom you trust. So the myths about hair transplant, let's dispel them one by one. That it's a one-time fix. It is not. You may need future sessions. The younger you are, the more sessions you will need, 3 or 4 more. But those are not going to be as big sessions as the first one if you're suffering from extensive grades of baldness in the first instance. Transplant covers all areas. See, this depends on the donor availability and the progression pattern. If you have enough grafts, we can cover the whole area and lush growth with scalp hair as well as body hair. But if you do not have, there will be a compromise, and somewhere you'll have to cheat. Somewhere the density will be less, but we'll help you with strategic placement of grafts. Another concept, the third one, is hair will grow overnight. No, it does not happen like that. There is no quick fix solution. Hair will take its own time. It's a biological process. It will take up to 6 months to 12 months for you to see a good result. Hair transplants look pluggy. hair transplants look pluggy only if you make the wrong choices. If you get a procedure done by untrained hands. Otherwise, a good hair transplant should be imperceptible, it should be invisible, even your barber cannot tell. That's how hair transplant is. If a hair transplant can be made out, it's the worst thing that can happen. I'll answer the questions later. So what should you really expect from a hair transplant? You should expect that it should be natural. It should remain for a long period of time. There should be permanent growth from transplanted follicles. Ongoing medical support to preserve native hair should be provided by the clinic, the doctor. There should be possibility of future sessions depending upon age and genetic pattern. And here, the health of the donor area, the integrity of the donor area plays a great role. And the timelines should be realistic. Patience is not optional. With proper planning, ethical execution, and long-term thinking, a transplant can be life-changing, but it must be seen for what it is. A hair transplant is an anchor. A hair transplant is not a miracle. So to conclude, is a hair transplant permanent? Yes, a hair transplant is permanent. It will last a lifetime. But only if your definition of permanence is durability of graft survival, not exemption from biology. Transplants do last, they grow, they endure, but they must be part of a larger therapeutic continuum, a medical protocol for a long period of time. Because hair transplant, hair restoration is not a destination. It's not the end treatment of hair loss. It's a journey, and one best taken with eyes open, with your expectations realistic, and your guidance from your doctor forthcoming and ethical. And as I often say, a good hair transplant lasts a lifetime, but only when you treat it like a living legacy, not a cosmetic cover-up. So thank you for watching. If you have any questions, and I'll answer the questions that have been asked already one by one after this talk concludes. If you have any further questions, do leave a comment in the comment section below, because I'll be making this video, posting this video as well later after say about half an hour. And if you have any personal consultation for your hair transplant, do message us on the numbers provided in the description box, and we'll get back to you tomorrow, Monday morning. So thanks for watching again. If you haven't subscribed, please do. Your engagement with me on this channel makes me committed to provide you realistic talks which are unbiased without commercial agenda. So support me. Please share this talk and also subscribe. Have a nice day and God bless.